Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Halpin Music Company is so much more than just a music products retailer. We do have great products at great prices, but we've been long known for our exceptional customer service, our friendly sales staff, and highly trained, experienced repair technicians. We have great and talented music instructors, students young and old alike, all age groups. So I invite you to come to Halpin Music Company and experience the Halpin Music Company difference.
In today's economy, everyone's looking for an encouraging sign. That's exactly what you'll find right here at my State Farm office in Bethalto. I'm Tom Lane, and for 86 years, State Farm agents like me have been helping you protect the things that matter most. That's why more people trust State Farm, and why we consider that a very good sign.
Call Tom Lane State Farm office in Bethalto at 377-8912 or go to tomlaneagency.net.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is fair.
Trigger Talent's course covers the mandated curriculums of Illinois and Florida. Our facility allows for a safe, professional, comfortable in any weather shooting environment. We utilize a variety of law enforcement targets to illustrate the best shot placement for stopping threats. Our advanced course, CCW Plus, is the only in the state to offer training from a real vehicle in road rage, carjacking, and parking lot scenarios. Over 1,400 people have trusted Trigger Talent to be their choice in concealed carry and advanced instruction. Shouldn't you also?
You walk onto this campus and it feels as though you're at an Ivy League institution.
It is cultured in so many ways. You would never know that it is a 2-year college.
This place is truly amazing. I love going to school here.
It is definitely not like any other community college.
If you're looking for a way for your life to change, then Lewis & Clark is the place for you to be.
Welcome to Claywell Asset Management, an independent firm. Whether you're an individual, family, or business, we can assist you in helping you achieve your financial dreams. Claywell Asset Management and Raymond James, partners in your success in serving Riverbend investors for over 30 years. Member FINRA and SIPC.
At Midwest Members Credit Union, you are important. We work hard to ensure you have the best banking experience possible. Whether you are inquiring about opening a savings account or wanting to learn more about a loan, our professionals are here to help you with any questions, and we will walk you through every step of the process. Since opening our doors in 1935, we've never forgotten that our members are our most important asset, which is why we continue to excel. For all your banking needs, Midwest Members is the one place to go. Calc Institute of Technology is working for you with career programs for today's jobs. As a career student, you can expect a welcoming atmosphere with exceptional personal service, small classes with one-on-one attention, a set class schedule, and short-term programs that will get you into the workforce quickly. Calc has 2 locations for your convenience located in both Alton and Fairview Heights. For more information, visit Calc online at www.calc.edu.
Trust Family Auto Sales and Cycles focuses on providing you with the highest quality used vehicles in the Riverbend. Before hitting the lot, all cars are thoroughly inspected and serviced in our very own repair shop. We make sure your future vehicle will look like it just came off the assembly line. We have a massive selection of cars with price ranges to fit any budget, and our motorcycles look like they just came off the showroom floor. Trust can finance any credit situation and have you on the road in no time. Whether you're looking for a car, truck, van, SUV, hybrid, or motorcycle, Trust Family Auto Sales has you covered.
Slow turning down. Slow turning down. So, I'm more of a concern. You're more concerned. So, all right, a little background. So, John and I met a while back. That's who you said. So, just, we were going to talk about topics that are hot topics. We'll eventually expand this out into and look at your questions and call in. John's friends will be able to My wife likes it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, hey, welcome to We Might Disagree with Brian and John, special guest Rob, episode 20. Woo! Last one of the year.
They said it.
Hey, you know what? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
The last one of the year.
Last one of the year.
I feel privileged.
And there's nobody on ice outside going down, taking out streetlights.
Were you guys here when that happened?
No.
I was going to say.
Yeah. But I did say.
Were you here, Mr. Producer?
Were you here, producer? Yeah, it was. Friday night. Yeah, it's true. I was glad that we weren't doing the show actually.
I got a quick story about that night. One of the guys from the gym, my cousin, that just started coming a couple of months ago. He and I went to Johnson's Corner after the gym that night, and as we were leaving, he slipped on the street and fell and busted his noggin on the road. Ouch. And I had to take him to the hospital. It took me 25 minutes to drive from Johnson's Corner to St. Anthony's, and then I had an employee stranded down at my building. It took me a while to get down there, and when I got up 6th Street Hill and got to Market Street, I was stranded there for 2.5 hours.
So what you're saying basically is that you feel the same way most people did, that the Alton mayoral people didn't do their job?
Well, I think they could have got out. I think they could have got out ahead of it.
Because Godfrey was pretty good.
Well, Godfrey's all flat too. You got to look at it that way. Godfrey's flat,
but ice is ice, bro. I mean,
yeah,
granted, there's nobody picking up speed.
And I think they could have got out ahead of it.
And it wasn't just Alton. I mean,
St.
it was
Louis, too.
No.
Yeah, everywhere in St.
And I'm not criticizing the mayor's office or anybody. I'm just saying. I
just wanted to
refocus. They all dropped the ball.
Everybody dropped the ball.
I just wanted to refocus you back to
got
politics. That's all.
Yeah, Alton politics. I stay out of it.
No,
I don't get to vote in Alton, so I stay out of it.
I was trying to refocus you to the show.
Oh, yeah. The show.
All right, so we're going to start today's show out with something that's been racking my brain, the difference between conservative and liberal, Brian's version 1.0. All right, so, because John, you and I agree on a lot of stuff, right? But we disagree on a lot of stuff. So basically what I see the difference between conservative and liberal. So as a conservative for me, and I'm going to refer to people that are on, just as an example, people that are on public assistance. Okay, I support public assistance. I think there's a need for it. I think it's something that we should have. It should never go away. I don't think it's something that people should be able to live on. The difference between, I think, myself as a conservative, and I'm speaking.
I just want to interrupt you for a second. When you say live on, do you mean they should be able to sustain themselves or to be on it for a long-term basis? Because those are two different things.
So, like, we've had 4 and 5 generations living in public housing.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that happen.
Well, I agree. But I think the difference is, I look at it from a standpoint of, okay, you're in the position, I get it, but you need to get yourself out of it. That's a conservative point of view. A liberal's like, no, they can't help it. We got to help them. They can't do it themselves. That's the kind of what I've watched from Bernie Sanders, and as I've sat back and watched the Trump and the Bernie Sanders and the Clinton and all this mess over the last year, what I see is there's a group of people that don't want help, that will take it as needed, but want, like somebody like me. I may have to get help sometime. I don't know. But I'm going to always work, even if it's 3 or 4 jobs, and I've proven that in my life to do. Some people don't want to do one job. We talk about immigration. Well, there's jobs Americans won't do. Well, that's horse crap. You know, anybody should have to do a job. I mean, to me, I would be out here sweeping the streets in Alton for a minimum wage, which is not a livable wage, but it's a minimum wage, entry-level wage. And that's another thing that I want to touch on real quick between conservative and liberal. Liberals believe a minimum wage is a wage for people to live on. A conservative believes, hey, it's to get you into the workforce.
It's entry level.
It's getting you in there and to work on. You're not supposed to live on this. It's not supposed to go up where you can live on it. That's my take on conservative and liberals. Now trash it.
Yeah, I want to hear John trash it first, because my definition is there's a lot of it that's similar to it, but there's more to it on my end.
That's a broad.
But I'd like to hear John's.
I mean, first off, I think it's easy for people that have never been on public assistance to say whether people can get off it, not get off it, or whatever. I will say that I've studied poverty.
I don't think it's easy. Let me make that clear. I don't mean to insinuate that. Okay, I don't think it's easy, especially today.
And part of what people need to understand about poverty is you have to look at it in a much larger scale than we typically do. It's easy to do a drive-by of an issue and say, well, you've got these people on public assistance. And frankly, I don't particularly like the notion of people being on public assistance generation after generation after generation. Well, what I would say is that a lot of these people find themselves in some extremely difficult conditions to get out of. And if you're going to address poverty, you have to address all of those conditions. I mean, and there is, unfortunately, to some extent, a bit of a racial component to this. And what I mean by that...
There is. I didn't want to touch on it.
There's a stigma of it.
There's
a myth, too.
And you have white people that leave communities to get away from African Americans because they believe that'll drive property values down or the schools won't be good or whatever. There's a lot of different reasons.
I don't want to interrupt you, John, but there are some African American people that leave African American communities to get away from some of the crime there too.
Well, I mean, African Americans are no different than anybody else.
No.
They want safe neighborhoods. They want clean water.
Good
they want schools that work for their kids. They want all those things. And the problem is, to find them, they have to move to white neighborhoods. So I don't necessarily say, they're not necessarily saying, I don't want to associate with African Americans.
It depends on what white neighborhoods you're talking about, because the neighborhood that I grew up in back in the day, you wouldn't want to move there whether you were white, black, or whatever.
Well, but he's talking,
right.
And perception.
But if you're looking at places like Wellston and, some of those North County neighborhoods, I know North County because I grew up in North County, and a lot of those places, the complexion literally has changed in the past 20 years, and you've had enormous white flight out of those areas into St. Charles County. And what happens is you have a decaying infrastructure. And it's this process where the property values go down, the tax base goes down, the schools go down, the educational quality for kids goes down. All
That's
these
the
things,
ticket right there. You just
all
hit the
those things. So, what I'd like to see us talk about, not necessarily in the show, but in some instance, we have to address the larger issue of poverty, which is...
How do you correct it without gentrifying the neighborhood, though? Because pumping federal dollars and state money into it clearly doesn't work.
But what I would like to see is, let's not have property value be how we fund our schools. Yes. Let's have state tax dollars fund our school system. And let's stop doing this ridiculous game that they do in Missouri, and I'm assuming they do it in Illinois, where they take the gambling money, which they said was supposed to support the schools, and what they do is they lower the educational budget more and more and more as the gambling,
and then make up for it by adding property taxes.
We actually have a lot of people that kind of watch this show, and I'm sure with you, John, you're out. People ask you questions, talk about it, and I've actually learned something on this show from you. And I mean, I give you a hard time, and I'm going to openly admit this because it's the end of the year, and it's something that's I've looked into a great deal. And John brought it to my attention. I'm not buying into the colorism. I'm still not there.
I think you need to do a little more research, but okay, fair enough. Rome wasn't built in a day.
That's right, but you struck a chord with me on education and referring to vocabulary of kids in inner city versus kids in regular. And when you look at poverty, and there's a direct line to education. And everything you just said is spot on. So a couple of weeks ago, rewind, I was at a Christmas party and somebody was, we were talking about the show and talking politics, which I really didn't want to do because I just wanted to have a few drinks and relax. But they said, if there's anything you could change, if you were going to run for office, what's one? I was like, if I could change anything in the world, and it wouldn't be world peace. It wouldn't be. It would be, I would fix the school system in America. It is so broken and unfair and unbalanced and biased and prejudiced and racist. I mean, it's everything.
The problem is it's everybody's pet project. Every politician has their finger in the pie,
and everybody's got a different idea of how it ought to be fixed.
Well, and I don't know how to fix it. Let me make that clear. I don't know how to fix it, but I know that it's not fair that we.
Let me make some shocking news here. One of the things I agree with Trump on and disagree with my liberal counterparts on is I think if you want to fix it, you fix it through vouchers. And I tell you why. And the reason is I went to a public school system from kindergarten to third grade. They taught me the new math and the new spelling. It took me the better part of my life, and I'm still not over it now. As those of you that have read some of my Facebook posts know that I transpose there, T-H-E-R-E and T-H-E-I-R, because they said, well, just spell it how it sounds. You can't do that in English.
No.
And that was a ridiculous...
They are two different things.
Right.
It's like teaching you 2 + 2 is 8.
Right. And so, I was a victim of ridiculous project that somebody tried, and thank God I got into.
But if it's ingrained in you
a private
from
school.
K through 12,
right? You're not going to get. It's
never
still.
gonna-
It's
it's
still
still
in my
there.
brain from that period. But my point is, I went to a Catholic North County grade school that didn't have a whole lot of money, but we had some motivated teachers. I was lucky that half the class was exorbitantly, ridiculously smart. I was one of the dumber kids in the smart half of the class.
Or we believe in that.
Yeah, you'd have no problem believing that part. You were, of course, were the smart person in the lower end of the class.
Yeah.
I think public schools have degenerated over the last 20 or 30 years.
First of all, let's be clear that we're not talking about our teachers, because
No.
They work their ass off.
Teachers are put in bad situations.
And I have no problem with the teachers that I had whenever I was at Alton High School, and that's public school.
In fact, Mr. Hawthorne died yesterday. And
Oh,
that
did he
devastated
really?
Me.
Oh, that's
I couldn't
horrible.
believe it. I mean, he was like my
remember
assistant
Mr.
principal.
Hawthorne.
I love that man. I mean, here I am, 40, I'm 48 years old, 30 years out of high school, and I remember him in third grade, fourth grade. Had a major impact on me. It's funding and it's it's parenting too. I think parents are part of the problem.
That's a huge part of it.
I don't know. I just wanted to give you those kudos on the last show of the year. That
I appreciate that. But my point is, fixing education isn't all about dollars.
No, it's
you
not.
can get literally. I got a world-class education. Now, it was an interesting environment that isn't necessarily transferable to other places, but motivated parents, motivated institution, motivated teachers, and all those people. You get a community working together. You don't need a whole lot of money to have a successful educational product.
And I think if we're really going to if we really want to make I get, I don't know how you fix it. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know. I remember back when I was in school, there was busing and they were trying to mix, desegregate. I mean, it was all going on, and I don't even know if you need to put black and white together as much as they think it's important to. I think diversity is important more as an adult than it is as a child.
What I'd like to see happen is what they do, frankly, somewhat in China and Taiwan, places like that, where you have the smartest kids competing to go to the best schools. Well, and people get a voucher to go where they want to go.
It's funny because you talk about that, and I just saw there's a lawsuit. Did you see this Asian guy is suing Harvard?
No.
Yeah, because I guess there's no quota for Asian people to get in.
Right.
And it's like
there's no affirmative action. You mean they don't take that into consideration?
And if you're not a legacy, or if you're not, so he's like, I can be smarter than everybody at that school, and I can still not get in, and that's not right. And I agree with him to a point. Now he's suing and everything else. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I mean, I wouldn't pay to go to Harvard.
There's a new McDonald's lawsuit, by the way. I just heard that. This one's funny. So we'll talk about that later.
I'm going to take a break real quick and come back. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We're going to get into Obama and Israel because this is complicated and it should be an interesting conversation. We'll be right back. Brian John, special guest Rob. We would disagree.
It's warm outside now, but cold weather will be here soon. Protect your home and save money with Eagleboard Premium Vinyl Siding from Eagle Home Improvement. Each Eagleboard panel covers twice the area of conventional siding. That means less air seeps into your home and you keep more money in your pocket. Eagleboard's beauty and performance will last a lifetime. Call Eagle Home Improvement at 259-2500 for a free no-obligation estimate. Eagle Home Improvement, where integrity counts.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, Free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
Halpin Music Company is so much more than just a music products retailer. We do have great products at great prices, but we've been long known for our exceptional customer service, our friendly sales staff, and highly trained, experienced repair technicians. We have great and talented music instructors, students young and old alike, all age groups. So I invite you to come to Halpin Music Company and experience the Halpin Music Company difference.
I mean, I have a lot of opinions about Israel.
All right, hey, welcome back. We might disagree. Brian John, special guest Rob. We've got our waters and our Yoo-Hoo.
Woohoo! Yoo-Hoo! We need you to be our sponsor, Yoo-Hoo.
Yes, we're looking for sponsors for 2017. Fit-A is going to get on it. Highlight, a lot of CrossFit stuff. Okay, so John Kerry delivers a 73-minute speech yesterday. Put pretty much everybody to sleep. But basically, essentially says settlements in the Middle East or in Israel are precourse to violence and creating war. Basically, what he said.
Sure. Well,
that's roughly what he said. I could get deeper.
Let me paraphrase. Let me try to paraphrase what I think he said.
He said settlements.
His point is that if settlements continue much longer, the ability to negotiate a two-state solution, which has been the U.S. policy for 40 years, is basically evaporating. And so you have to, Israel has to do something to stop the settlements if there's a hope to have a two-state solution.
So what Israel's response was, Israel's hand's always been extended for peace, but when you're launching rockets every 3 minutes into my community and you don't want to sit down at the table, it's going to be kind of hard to have peace. And I have to agree with that. And people don't understand, because most of you watch CNN and Fox and all. They don't report that they get rocketed daily over there. It's daily. They want Obama and Kerry want Israel to go back to pre-1967 borders. Now let's talk about 1967 war, the 5-day war. Israel was attacked. They did nothing wrong. They were attacked.
I thought it was 6 days.
Maybe it was an extra day for cleanup. It was pretty quick.
For cleanup.
Listen, flat out, Israel whipped the shit out of them. It wasn't even a war. It was an embarrassment by any standard of a war. 5 countries attacked them, and they were annihilated very quickly before the U.S. even got out of bed. It was over.
I have a little tougher time now, though, since Iran's been allowed to...
Yeah, well, to grow so much. I still think Israel can handle Iran. My point is this. When you go to war and you attack somebody and they take land, and they've been given land and given land and given land back, they want to go all the way back. In fact, if I missed something, I probably need to pull it up. I didn't bring my notes, and I apologize for that. I don't want to paraphrase. But they really want the Western Wall to go back into Palestinian hands. If you know what the Western Wall is, it's called the Wailing Wall. That wall is part of the old temple that was torn down by the Romans pre-Jesus. Okay, so... And let's just be honest. Can you recall a time that when there was ever a Palestinian state?
No. That's a nomadic...
Before the Jews moved in.
That was never a sovereign state.
No, but
we talked about this before we started tonight.
I know, but John, but I wanted to get people to hear this. So here's the thing, man. Palestinians have rights to nothing, in my mind, in this. Okay.
You mean no claim to the state?
They have claim to nothing. They have claim to nothing.
They've been a nomadic tribe for most of the history.
All their time, from what I know.
Until the last... How old is Israel? 60 years? So, it's been 60 years?
Yeah, 50. And then, Israel says, okay, so then, I like this part.
I don't know my history that well.
This is the best part. Well, the war 50 years ago. So 60, yeah. So, they say, John Kerry's basically saying, well, you can still stay there. The Jewish people can still live there, but it's going to be a Palestinian territory. Well, if all you want to do is kill me, and everything that Rob you're saying is I can't exist, my existence is not tolerated, how does my settlements have anything to do with what I'm completely confused here?
Well, I mean, they've tried to extend their hand to them, and in exchange for peace, and peace hasn't happened.
I guess the biggest
so you get screwed each way. It's Dutch door action.
Why has the United States, in the final days of an Obama administration, taken this huge, unprecedented swing like this out of American... That's
monkey wrench Trump.
No, actually, it's not. I mean,
you believe they would have? So, John, you believe they would have that they would have done all of this if Hillary Clinton was was getting sworn in next month? They would have left this mess for her.
And that's where
I don't believe it for a second.
And by the way, we also know now, and Netanyahu is going to release this out. By the way, that we know that Obama. And listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm okay with this. Just to be clear, okay?
You're okay with the Israelis doing espionage on the United States,
and with them doing with us doing. I believe countries do that.
They do it,
and we do it.
But it doesn't mean that we should be okay with it.
But if we're going to do it, we can't. That's the difference between me and most people. If you're doing it and I'm doing it, I'm not going to badmouth you for doing it. I'm just as guilty.
There's a I don't know.
What? I mean, you can't. I mean, it's the same thing with the elections.
Prisoner's dilemma.
It's a bad deal.
You're a country, you build nuclear weapons, I build nuclear weapons, and we decide we're not going to build nuclear weapons anymore. So we both say that we stop, but we really don't.
That's why I said.
I pretend that you don't know that I'm doing it. You pretend that I don't know that you're doing it. But in the end, everybody knows.
And people fall for the shit.
Yeah.
It's like I said.
Prisoner's dilemma. You put one guy in one room, one guy in another, and tell this guy, "Hey, this guy over here is getting ready to turn you in."
And it's, so Obama
tell us something we don't know.
We know Obama doesn't like Netanyahu. We've known this. If you read in Obama's books, if you've watched him,
but let me answer this.
He doesn't like Israel.
If he doesn't like Israel, why did we just pass the largest defense appropriations bill for Israel less than 30 days ago?
Because we gave Iran how many $1 billion? They're going to need it.
We gave them $479 billion.
Yeah, they're going to need it.
Plus, we gave them a 10-year plan to nuclear weapons.
I ransomed
because they had no other choice.
I mean, we got the worst deal in the world with the Iran deal. We got nothing for that. We got nothing for that.
We got
we
the
gave
one
them
thing.
Everything.
We got the one thing that we need, which is the right to have inspectors go and look unencumbered.
Hey, can I help you out with something real quick there, Mr. Liberal? There's a guy that used to walk the earth named Saddam Hussein who didn't let us have inspectors. How's he doing?
If you believe the mullahs and the sheikhs and the
well, he wasn't doing very well because he didn't have
people in there.
He didn't have weapons of mass destruction.
Then we're also talking about the UN again.
So hang on a minute now. See, that's a good point because the CIA made it very clear that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. They also
the same CIA that says that the Russians hacked the election.
But that's the thing. The liberals don't want to believe the nuclear weapons. We're supposed to believe the Russians. That's my point. But
hey, what about Netanyahu? Netanyahu says he's got ironclad proof that we interfered with the UN
I want to
court.
see it.
That's what I'm talking
about. I want to see it.
He's going to show it.
Yeah.
He says he's going to.
Well, here's what I actually think is going to happen there. I think what's going to happen is
not trying to gang up on you.
There were conversations probably going back and forth, but in terms of like the U.S. sponsoring this
or actually writing
it, no. I mean, I think probably there were some discussions that said,
"Listen, we should have vetoed.
We know what you're going to do. We're not going to stand in your way. Wink, wink, nod, nod."
Right.
Yeah.
But to say that somehow the United States brought this up.
The United States did not bring it. I'm not accusing Obama of bringing it up. Okay?
But that's what Netanyahu is saying.
Netanyahu is not saying that.
Actually,
he is actually saying.
He says he's got proof that
we started
that we started it and we wrote the actual UN.
Right.
Well, what is it? It's not
the resolution.
The resolution.
Huh? I didn't. I listened to his speech. I didn't get that from him.
And I'll be honest, I haven't been following it as close as I should have
been
because of the holidays, and I've had other stuff going on, so I haven't followed it as closely as you guys have been close to it.
It had me.
Is this a binding? This is a non-binding or a binding resolution?
It's a UN thing, so it's really it's a nothing.
So the
problem with the UN,
it's probably not even going to be. It's not really enforceable.
Right. Yeah, it's again. I think the position though, what's got most people fired up, is the position that the United States took. I mean,
You mean no position?
Well, which is not a good position. We've always sat right
now. Let me ask you this: you said you spent all these hours looking into this.
No, I spent all these hours awake, pissed off.
All right. Well, I wish you would have spent all these hours.
He
looking
did say
into
that. He did say that.
Did you listen? Did you listen to the United Nations U.S. ambassador to the United Nations speech prior to the abstention?
I have not listened to that yet. I have not.
Well, here's the missing link that frankly pisses me off about conservatives on this issue, is that they haven't listened to it. And so all the information that they're getting from the people that agree with the way that they think is that all it was a slam on Israel. And I actually listened to what the woman said, and it was a scathing rebuke of the bias against Israel by Muslim and Muslim-favoring countries. And so it was actually a pretty even-handed exchange about some of the things that Israel's doing and a lot of problems that the UN has with respect to how they've treated Israel historically. And so for those of you who haven't heard that, and for those of you who were under the mistaken belief that somehow it was some one-sided ambush.
It was very one-sided ambush.
It was not one-sided.
First of all, it was not. Okay, so here's the deal. The United States stands next to Israel.
I think we need to have
why does that got to change?
Well, I'd like to ask the reverse question. Why is it that the United States has to have this absolutely ironclad, 100% reflexive position with respect to Israel? Now, I don't hate Israel.
I can answer that. And it's not a biased answer. It's not a biased. It's not a biased answer.
My answer's biased.
It's an easy question to answer, and it's two-part. There's a two-part answer to it, and this is my answer. This isn't some
America won't like my
This is my
answer.
opinion. Number one, it's global positioning. It's not in our national interests because we rely on so much foreign oil to not have an ally in the Middle East. And our only ally in the Middle East, true ally, has been historically Israel. Number two, it's the only democracy in the Middle East. There are no other democracies in the Middle East. Nothing.
And those are two good points. Those are really valid points.
And that's not a. But it's not a conservative answer.
But my point is, France is a democracy. England is a democracy.
Sure,
and we don't have.
We're not going to war with those people.
No. But we don't try to prop them up either.
Oh, we do.
No.
Come on, France doesn't exist without America. They're gone.
In terms of a strategic
France is on its way out anyway, but we can get into that on another show.
We're not spending $3.9 billion a year trying to make sure that they have weapons and instruments to protect themselves.
But they're not under siege by rocket fire daily.
You know, I want to address the rocket fire issue. Did you realize that the United States and Israel, mostly I believe the U.S. technology, but this is my personal opinion, gave this technology to Israel.
Absolutely.
We have this, essentially this radar system. I think it's called the Dome.
The Iron Dome.
The Iron Dome. And so you can talk about rockets, but shooting rockets is idiotic because not only does it give away the position of whoever's firing, it gives the information that they need to retaliate.
Right. But they can't retaliate half the time because they're sitting in schools and churches or mosques.
They've also upped the ante now too. Did you know?
Hospitals.
Mr. Producer, did you know that the Palestinian government will pay you 1 month's salary for every Israeli that you kill?
Is that true?
That is true. And they will do it by now. They're walking up and stabbing you while you're waiting by the bus or you're walking down the street because of the Iron Dome. So thanks for bringing that up, John.
Well, we're talking about human rights. Here's my problem with the settlements. As in the settlements, the Palestinians in those countries have no civil rights. They don't have the right to vote.
That's between them and their government.
They're not recognized.
They're not recognized.
That's between them and they need to figure it out.
They don't have a sovereign state.
Right. Find one.
They've never had one.
Move to Israel and be nice.
No.
Yes.
You cannot tolerate.
Here, come to America, right?
If you are an American, you have to believe in inalienable human rights.
I believe in human rights as a Christian, not as an American. I believe.
Well, you should believe them as both.
Well, I'm a Christian before I'm an American, so. Because I'm a Christian, before I'm an American, I think the reason America stands next to Israel is because of the Christianity version of this country.
I think that's a very large part of
it. It's a 90% of it.
Sure.
That's kind of a very interesting point, too, because I had this conversation the other day.
Hang on, man. Mr. Producer's making sexy moves. We gotta
take a break?
We gotta take a break?
This one's getting good.
Here, I gotta write this down.
The suspense is down. We'll be right back. Brian Jones, don't get right. We might disagree. Christians.
In today's economy, everyone's looking for an encouraging sign. That's exactly what you'll find right here at my State Farm office in Bethalto. I'm Tom Lane, and for 86 years, State Farm agents like me have been helping you protect the things that matter most. That's why more people trust State Farm, and why we consider that a very good sign.
Call Tom Lane State Farm office in Bethalto at 377-8912 or go to tomlaneagency.net.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Trigger Talent's course covers the mandated curriculums of Illinois and Florida. Our facility allows for a safe, professional, comfortable in any weather shooting environment. We utilize a variety of law enforcement targets to illustrate the best shot placement for stopping threats. Our advanced course, CCW Plus, is the only in the state to offer training from a real vehicle in road rage, carjacking, and parking lot scenarios. Over 1,400 people have trusted Trigger Talent to be their choice in concealed carry and advanced instruction. Shouldn't you also?
You walk onto this campus and it feels as though you're at an Ivy League institution.
It is cultured in so many ways. You would never know that it is a 2-year college.
This place is truly amazing. I love going to school here.
It is definitely not like any other community college.
If you're looking for a way for your life to change, then Lewis and Clark is the place for you to be.
Hey, welcome back to Brian and John. We might disagree with Brian and John, special guest Rob. So we're just getting into the meat and potatoes of the argument that nobody wants to talk about, and I'm going to bring it up because I don't care. That's the way I roll. So listen, it's America. I've always believed in my heart that one of the reasons that we've done well as a country, we do well, is because of our protection of Israel. I believe that we protect Israel because they're God's chosen people. That's the Bible that I read, and that's what I believe in my heart to be true. We protect them, and because of that, I believe we grow. We are one nation under God. I know a lot of people don't like that, and I'm sorry, but you have your opinions, and you're fine with it, okay? And that's a whole nother discussion. But the fact of the matter is, I've always believed that. It's in our interest, by the way, as a predominantly Christian country, and would anybody here argue that that's not the case?
I would say I would say that most of the. Yeah, when you break down demographically,
it has a Christian tradition and history.
It's a deep tradition, deep tradition. I can take in that September 11th and Isaiah 9:10 with the church and where George Washington did something. You want to go deep. So I've researched it. So that being said,
I try to avoid those arguments a lot.
They're not winnable arguments. That's why I don't like to get into them. But I believe in my heart it's in our interest to protect Israel from that. Now, when you're talking to me as a Christian. John, you're a Christian. Mm-hmm. Rob, I'm not sure where you are on this.
I'm not sure where I am either.
That's okay. It's all right. I know, John, where you
John
are.
and I have talked about this at length.
I've judged no one on anything, any position. But as a Christian person, that ground in Israel, and particularly Jerusalem and around those areas, is our ground. That's our Mecca. Okay, that's our Mecca. All right. To just hand that over to another country that doesn't respect any of that.
Well, you keep saying country, though, and they're not.
Right.
They want to be.
Well,
they're not even a sovereign state.
They're trying to become a sovereign state. Right. Listen, here's the thing. They got, let's just draw a quick circle, 2 circles, and it's a little more broke up to that.
Right.
Am I okay with Israel here and Palestine here? Yes, I'm okay with that. The problem is the lines go this way.
Right.
And they kind of come that way. They got to figure out the lines.
Well, you got Palestine here and Palestine here.
Yes. So they got to figure something out, okay?
Right.
How they do that, I don't know. To me, it's not that simple. But I don't know one thing. This side, the Palestinian side, has got to stop saying you don't have a right to exist.
With
Iran and everybody else backing them.
I got a great story about this, and leave that out there.
Go ahead.
Because I need a visual
great
for
artwork.
This. Yes, it's awesome.
We spared no
it's a Swiss watch.
Our graphics department at the We Might Disagree show.
Well,
they just blew our budget right there.
They're on Christmas break.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, holiday break.
Okay. So anyway, I had a professor in college that was really, really up to speed on Israel and Palestine and the long history of violence over there, and her take on it was that this is a resource war. This never was a war about territory or religion or anything like that.
I've never heard that.
Resource war, and it's not about oil or gold or anything like that. It's water.
Yeah.
Fresh water. Now, did you know that Israel has the largest desalination plants on the earth now?
I did not know that.
That didn't surprise me.
20 years ago, they did not have that. The only fresh water ran through here.
Right.
This way. Palestine here, Israel here. There was no fresh water here, no fresh water here. These people were dying and fighting over this water, access to this water.
Israel
and
needs
they
to
didn't
give them
have
access.
Well, it wasn't in their national interest at the time to do it because there was such a scarcity of it. Now, with the desalination plants, I think that is an argument that you can't make.
Well, if Obama's right with global warming, the ocean's going to run up in there, and other creeks will flow. They'll be fine.
That's another show.
Listen,
that's a whole other show.
It is. Listen, here's my thing.
There are enough hours in the day to tell you how wrong you're about that on this show.
But the Christian angle, I want to go back to what we were talking about during the break just to make this point so that the viewers can hear what we had talked about during the break. Part of what you were talking about with the Christian angle on it, it reminded me of the argument that I had earlier in the week on Facebook, and there was a guy that really made a great point, and John, I was telling you and John this about Russia and how the political shift in the United States and the position on Russia has changed over the last 30 years, partially because of the old Soviet bloc being, I said at one time the left had, had more of an alignment with the Soviet bloc because it was an atheist, godless, communist country, and now the right's cozying up to Russia because there's a lot more Christianity in Russia, and it's not the only reason, but it's one of those reasons.
One of them.
That and the oil.
The oil, of course.
That's a lethal combination: Christianity and oil.
So,
communism and atheism worked out great for them, didn't it?
Well, but look at the United States, where you have the Bible Belt, is also where you have the oil production.
So, does anybody in this room besides me know what the first act that George Washington and Congress did together? And do they know where
hey, wait a minute. I know the answer to this.
The first thing they did
Hold on a
together.
second. I know the answer to this. I saw it on, what was the movie? Dazed and Confused, about growing weed.
That would have been cool if it was.
Yeah, man. George
do you know what it
weed.
was?
I do not.
Okay, so let's just do a little history, because I've dug deep into this. In fact, I traveled to this place to see it to myself, to validate that what I was reading was true. I went through a great expense to do this. So when George Washington was president, when he became president for the first time, where was he inaugurated at? Does anybody
In New
know?
York.
In New York, and what is that street called now?
Wall Street.
Wall Street, okay. So he was inaugurated on Wall Street. So Congress and them, they walked from Wall Street to this little church. I believe it's St. Peter's Chapel. Okay, St. Peter's Chapel.
Yeah.
They went there.
Take your word for it.
I can show you pictures. They went there, and what they did was they asked God to bless this nation. That was the first thing they did together because there wasn't a whole lot we didn't have 500 people in Congress at the time. That's what they did.
That was the first act of Congress?
First act of Congress. I mean, it's unofficial, I guess. It wasn't like in a binding resolution.
It was their first action.
Actually,
as opposed to first legislation.
Yeah, it wasn't legislation, but that's the first.
It was like the first order of business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, do you know where this chapel? Do you know where St. Peter's Chapel is?
No, I've never been to New York.
Okay, well, I didn't either. They told me where it was, and I want you to look this up, people. So it's all over. It's actually hidden. You got to really look it. But
write it down.
Write it down. I'll revisit it. It is okay. So in the front of the chapel is a giant sycamore tree. Okay, now if you know sycamore trees in the Bible, you know there's a reflection between sycamore trees and who? Israel. There's a lot of sycamore trees in Israel.
Yeah, I mean
that area.
There's a lot at my house.
There's a lot of passages in the Bible that
trees, yes.
use a tree reference as
Joshua
the nation of Israel. Sure.
Anyway, so
it's the Bible.
Anyway, on September 11th, when these buildings came down, I could throw a football, probably, maybe not football, maybe a baseball to Tower 1 from the church. This church.
I was going to say, if you were going to say you could throw a football from there, your new nickname is going to be Uncle Rico.
Yeah, Uncle Rico. But we're talking less than 60, 70 yards from the Tower 1. And this church is still standing today. I've stood in it. Firemen went into this church to be protected when the buildings came down. This church is untouched, and it was because of the sycamore tree in front of that fell and knocked all the debris down. In fact, all the tombstones from the 1800s are still standing. When I went to Ground Zero to see this church, because I went there for a lot of reasons, but I wanted to see this church. It was on I gotta see this to believe it, because it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it's not possible. I asked the guy, oh, it's over there, and it was just people were rolling through it, and they've got George Washington's chair in it and stuff. So my point is this: you can not believe in God, you can believe in God, you can do whatever, but I believe very, very, very much in that moment in time when George Washington and Congress did that. We've been blessed since then. Part of the reason that we do well is because we protect Israel. There's no mention of America in the Bible. There's no mentioning of it in the beginning of the Bible or the end of the Bible. We don't exist.
There's no mention of
America. Us. We don't exist. There's Christians.
Right. You're saying there's no mention in the Bible. I thought you were saying that there's no mention. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So if you go back to Isaiah 9:10, Isaiah 9:10 is whenever the Israelites were under attack by the Assyrians. Does anybody know who Assyrians are? It's in today's name. Be Iranians.
Right.
And anyway, what saved them was not a
They're
wall.
also called the Babylonians.
Babylonians.
Right.
What saved them was sycamore trees. Okay? So my point is that there is a tie between us and Israel. There is a tie. That's just one. I could give you plenty more. So when I hear Obama taking this far, far, far move away from where we've always been, it's extremely concerning to me.
See, actually, I disagree with that point. I think that if you look at the policy of Ronald Reagan, of Jimmy Carter, of every president prior to Obama, say in the past 40 years, you will find support in their positions taken before the United Nations, very similar to the position that was recently taken. And it's
the United Nations is different today, John, than it was 10 years ago. It's a different entity.
But the position, the policy statement is the same.
No, I think, okay, so why is the UN more worried about Israel than what's going on in freaking Syria?
Listen.
It's just part of the business that was brought before them.
So you mean to tell me the United Nations should focus on Israel and the Palestinian issue in America versus what's going on in Syria?
You're suggesting...
All I need to know about the UN is the Human Rights Committee. That's a joke.
Okay, thank you.
You're suggesting...
The UN is deep in the middle of Syria. They have got troops everywhere in the middle of Syria. They're dying. I mean, according to Obama and everybody else in the world, and I believe
so how do you solve it? How do you solve Syria?
How do I solve Syria?
Yeah, how do you solve it?
Syria's a gigantic mess.
I don't know now, bro.
See, that's the point.
I don't know now. I don't know.
So...
It's not a civil war, I can tell you that.
No.
There's plenty of bad people to go around.
You got 7 or 8 bad actors in there already.
Right. But listen, we America created that mess.
In part.
We didn't
make them bad. We didn't make them bad people.
They were on fire, and we dumped a shit ton of gas. Okay, and then we didn't. And then, so I feel for me as an American, we owe it to be there to do something. We got to do something. We're letting Russia and Iran they're just killing people right and left. I watched the Aleppo. That's...
What's Aleppo?
It's a little kangaroo that...
Did you get the joke?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I was diverting from it. Was the kangaroo.
I have mixed feelings about Aleppo because I don't like to see anybody slaughtered.
That's what's happening.
And it is happening.
It's disgusting.
And nobody's doing anything about it, and something should be done. But... if something is, we need to figure out, and maybe this is a UN question, maybe the UN needs to be more aggressive, and maybe we need to give them a little more autonomy, which I know you don't want to hear, but in this sense, we can't just pick and choose the people being slaughtered that get to be saved. And my only criticism is it tends to be, why is it that we tend to put more credence in saving people that look more like us, and there's stuff going on historically in Rwanda and all kinds of African countries where there's similar kinds of butchery going on. And so my point is, if we're going to make a commitment, either we're going to stand for human rights and we're going to defend people against this kind of slaughter, or let's just be honest and say we only do things in our interest, because frankly that's historically what we do. If there's oil or something important,
if there's a resource
then we'll show up and then we'll stop the slaughter.
Well, that's why Africa is what it is, because there's no resources there, so nobody cares.
Actually, that's not
true.
There
used to be.
Africa has more resources than the rest of the world combined. So
they're just very hard to get to.
Well, but the Chinese are very smart about Africa. They're forming relationships with these people, which is what we should be doing more.
Yeah, and they're a lot closer to them too.
Well.
Geographically, they're a lot closer.
But at some point, those chickens are going to come home to roost in terms of China and their exploitation of African resources.
If you look at what
I heard that comment, I just
Reverend Wright,
it just goes right to.
Look at you're so programmed.
No, it's the only time I've ever heard.
Really? Yeah. Oh, I've heard that all.
I hate saying this because I really ride a certain friend of ours on Facebook about doing this, and this will be the second time I've done it tonight, so if she's watching, she can go ahead and lay into me and laugh about it. But I got to bring up another class that I took in college, and it was African politics, and it was really, really interesting, and there was a lot of history of resources over there and wars over resources over there, especially the rubber trade. And
wars over there.
Yeah. And there was a lot of, the British were heavily involved, and there was a lot of stuff going on over there.
Started the slavery. It wasn't Americans, it was British.
Well, yeah. And the Portuguese.
But the British kind of wised up to slavery before we did. So
we were on the tail end of it.
Right.
I'm not having that conversation.
No.
Let's stick to this. I guess
we all can agree that was a time in history that was an ugly thing that nobody wants to revisit.
And it's been fixed. Some people just can't let it go. So, my thing is this, I guess. Is there a problem with Israel and the Palestinians? Yes. Is it going to be resolved tomorrow? No. Is it going to be resolved 10 years from now? I don't think so.
But I want you to respond to the argument that they made, which is if you continue these developments, the expanding the construction in the Palestinian occupied territory, the opportunity to negotiate a two-state solution becomes much more difficult. In fact, most of the experts say it's probably impossible now.
But what's the flip side of it? I mean, if you don't do anything about it, what's the likelihood of a two-state solution?
I ask you this: why do I need to stop doing anything if I'm Israel? I'm good. You're the one with the problem.
Well, here's an interesting counter-argument to that.
Give me something for stopping. If I'm going to stop, give me something.
Much of the United States military expenditures, arguably over the past, since 9/11, so 16 years, you can argue that a very sizable portion of our defense budget is linked to other countries' hatred of Israel.
Absolutely.
My point is, that's a pretty expensive price tag. And if we're essentially the largest benefactor to Israel's military defense, and we make what I think, frankly, is a reasonable request, and I don't care whether I think that there should be property that's cordoned off for the Palestinians to allow them to have some degree of self-rule, the right to vote, the right to work, the right to have freedom of travel. They don't. They don't.
They voted for their own. They voted for their own leader.
They don't have a government that's recognized.
They don't have a seat at the table. I get that.
All right.
But I get that, and maybe that's something that can be talked about down the road. But at the same time, too, John Kerry also referred to Hamas as their military, which is, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they considered a terrorist organization?
I mean, I think you can call them a terrorist organization.
I think you can when you're launching rockets into schools.
They're the political arm of, or they're the military arm of the political.
But so is Hezbollah. But listen, you can't hide behind that. These people don't wear uniforms.
But
these people don't. No.
I'll concede that point, but frankly, when you don't give someone any political civil rights, and you are an occupying force, and Israel is in this territory in terms of how these people are treated. I don't think you go to Human Rights Watch, go to Amnesty International, and look at their position on the Israeli government's conduct in the occupied territory, and it's atrocious. So you can be a supporter of Israel, and I think that I support Israel reasonably, but I have a problem with their conduct in this territory. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that the United States government demand that those people be given civil rights. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I don't think that anybody's denying that. Even Netanyahu.
It is. They are to tell them that they're denying it.
Netanyahu even referred to the leader of Palestine as their president. He referred to, he goes, I've extended my hand to the president, whatever his name is.
But that doesn't mean that they have a right to vote. It doesn't
mean
they
voted. They voted for their guy.
They vote for their own people. They don't have a vote in terms of a government that functions and controls the territory where they are.
This has been going on for 40 years.
It's been going on longer than that, bro.
But
this show?
I
think this show's been moving pretty well.
The United States involvement. The United States involvement's been going on between these two factions for 40 years.
Right, let's take a quick break. We'll get back to this. This is obviously a lot more. This is what I want to talk about. Right back. Thank you.
Welcome to Claywell Asset Management, an independent firm. Whether you're an individual, family, or business, we can assist you in helping you achieve your financial dreams. Claywell Asset Management and Raymond James, partners in your success in serving Riverbend investors for over 30 years. Member FINRA and SIPC.
At Midwest Members Credit Union, you are important. We work hard to ensure you have the best banking experience possible. Whether you are inquiring about opening a savings account or wanting to learn more about a loan, our professionals are here to help you with any questions, and we will walk you through every step of the process. Since opening our doors in 1935, we've never forgotten that our members are our most important asset, which is why we continue to excel. For all your banking needs, Midwest Members is the one place to go. Calc Institute of Technology is working for you with career programs for today's jobs. As a career student, you can expect a welcoming atmosphere with exceptional personal service, small classes with one-on-one attention, a set class schedule, and short-term programs that will get you into the workforce quickly. Calc has 2 locations for your convenience located in both Alton and Fairview Heights. For more information, visit Calc online at www.calc.edu.
I'll grab the birthday cake, you bring the gift, if you're sure she's ready.
She's 16, honey, and she's earned a set of keys.
She's studied and practiced, I know, but it's a big responsibility.
When you have a teen driver, it's good to know that Madison Mutual has the insurance coverage you need.
She's ready, and so are we. I talked to our Madison Mutual agent.
Call Barry Macias, your local independent insurance agent, at 467-2874.
The more life changes, the more you need Madison Mutual.
You texting?
No, I'm just.
Welcome back. We might disagree with Brian John. Is that a new phone?
He's texting.
Nope.
He's texting for answers.
Texting.
Phone a friend.
Yeah.
Phone a friend.
I need a phone line.
Lifeline.
Special guest Rob. So listen. I so we're talking off air. My question is all the stuff that's going on in the country and the world. And there's a lot. Okay, there's a lot going on. Why now? Why this? And I think we all agree this is a Democrat Party move, not an Obama move. I believe that. And we talked about Hillary would probably be doing it after the fact.
She would have done it after the inauguration.
They're just getting it out.
They would have done it and done it later, but
maybe not even that soon.
Obama wouldn't have done it had she won the election. He would have let her do it down the road somewhere. He would have stayed out of it.
You agree with that?
I think that's possible. I think one thing that people lose sight of, and I'm always have been fascinated by lame duck presidents and their use of power, for this reason, and not for the obvious reason, but there's obviously plenty of armchair quarterbacks that will criticize the use of power. But one thing that I think is interesting about that lame duck period, which makes the activities of the president unique, is once they know that there is no more political repercussions to what they do, and they're literally free.
They don't have to run again.
They don't have to run again, and their conduct doesn't have an impact on the next person in line.
Right.
That's what I mean. And I'm particularly interested in like presidential pardons and that kind of stuff. I think and maybe I'm being Pollyannish about this, but I actually think that Obama believes that this was absolutely a necessary statement. Did Netanyahu's relationship with him, which has been terrible, color it? Maybe, probably. But I do think that he is committed to the overall peace process and did reasonably believe that this territory is at a tipping point. If something dramatic wasn't done shortly, the window was going to be shut on the two-state solution. And he believed, and it was very upfront when he ran 8 years ago, that he believed in a two-state solution, which is the same position I believe that George Bush had and H.W. Bush had.
Virtually every president for the last 40 years.
Everybody wants it.
That's where I was
you
going
can argue about the timing and say it's terrible, but I do think that there was this
it's
window.
Just suspicious. It's a suspect timing. You might, and John might be right about it, but the timing of it is suspect.
But that's the great thing about the lame duck president. It's like,
true.
You know what?
Who cares?
I did, and I really do believe that for the most part, Clinton's and some of those parts were pretty.
I can't wait to see.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what Obama does.
Whether it's in 4 years or 8 years, I can't wait to see the crap Trump pulls at the end.
Does Obama pardon Blagojevich?
Who? Blagojevich?
Blagojevich, yeah, I call him Blagojevich.
No,
I don't think he does either.
You know what?
So
I disagree. I think he should.
I think he should.
If I were Obama, I would, and if I were me and I were in office, I would pardon him. And here's why: Blago got railroaded. I don't know if y'all know this or not. He was doing some shit he shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
But he got railroaded, and the courts upheld that he got railroaded. How many charges did he get clipped with that he shouldn't have?
I know.
I think he's done his time. He's been in there. How long has he been in prison now? 7 years? 7 years now?
Yeah. 6 years.
Does he? He got sentenced to 14 for the whole boatload of charges that he had, and they reduced it down to 1 charge, and they're still keeping him in there?
I could see.
Get him out.
I could see them commuting his sentence.
Commute it.
Yeah.
Commute it, give him time served, get him out of there.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Actually, President President's what's his name, Obama, hasn't really done anything crazy on pardons. I mean, it's mostly
he's pardoned more people though than any other sitting president.
But they're low end people, and I think he's doing that.
He's not pardoning Mumia Abu Jamal and people like that.
Well, he is doing that too. He's cleaning out Gitmo.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that cop killer Mumia Abu Jamal.
No. He's doing low level people that are not violent.
He might be dead now. Is he still alive?
I think he's doing it too to take some pressure off the prisons. Well, by the way, we do imprison more people than anybody else. So
and what he's doing with the pardon and commutation process, which I think is interesting, is that since we have these mandatory minimums in federal court,
especially on drug offenses.
Yeah, and if you talk to any lawyer that deals with that, they'll all tell you, probably on both sides, that it's a terrible thing. And I understand that, there's some case where some person gets a lighter sentence than perhaps you and I think they should get, and they go out and they do something terrible. But for every one of those, there's 1,000 people that are serving 30, 40, 50 years in prison because they sold a rock of crack, or they were a third-time offender and
low-level drug offenders,
bread or something ridiculous.
I think low-level drug offenders shouldn't be doing hard time like that. It's not helping. No. It's not helping them. Right. It's not helping. It's not helping our budget, our prison. How many people do we have incarcerated in this country right now?
It's cheaper to send them to college than it is to send them to prison.
Right.
And frankly,
going back to the education
only thing that keeps people from committing violent crimes going forward is education. It's the only thing that's been proven to do that.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So, John, I'm asking this because you are...
We might agree.
We do agree. John and I agree a lot. I learn a lot from John.
I agree with John a lot.
He learns from me, too. He'll never admit it publicly. Maybe something. I get him thinking.
Maybe if you give me a couple drinks, that may loosen up a little bit.
Go to poker night with us some night.
So, let me ask you this. So, I was told a long time ago. It's been a long time ago.
I learned about the sycamore tree.
Yeah, I want you to
I hadn't heard about the sycamore tree, but I learned a little bit about it.
I learned about the Syrians.
So, our if I'm not mistaken, I was told that our judicial system is set up basically for 100 guilty people to go free versus one innocent person to go to prison.
Supposedly, that's kind of a pipe dream when you start.
But when you look
in
at
federal court,
set up.
Well, when you start looking at that's a principle in terms of beyond a reasonable doubt, and it's different than people just thinking, well, I think he's more likely guilty than that. That's not the standard. As long as you have reasonable doubt, you are supposed to vote not guilty, even if you think they're guilty.
Like in the OJ trial, for instance. I mean, it's coming back up again. I believe in my heart that man's guilty, but I would never have convicted that guy.
I wouldn't either.
I would never have done it. I mean, why America's...
And actually,
OJ, I don't know.
People think that I'm crazy, but I say that both juries got it right. And they're like, how can you say that? And here's how I can say that. That the prosecution of O.J. Simpson in the criminal case was based upon blood evidence, and there was a loss of chain of custody of the blood for 24 hours.
Contamination.
Yeah. You cannot convict somebody on the basis of blood evidence without a chain of custody.
It's the same thing with the Zimmerman trial. It's the same thing with Casey Anthony.
Yeah.
The prosecution, and what is going on in Florida? How come they can't prosecute anybody down there? Everybody seems to walk down there. If I'm ever going to kill somebody, I'm moving to Florida.
That's the place to go.
Let me ask you this. So this is something I don't like about our system. I don't like this. So O.J. Simpson gets off all criminal charges.
Sure.
How is it then that he can legally, or not legally, but how is it he can be sued and everything that he's owned is taken from him?
It's a civil case. It's not a criminal trial.
But you shouldn't.
I kind of agree with you.
That's not right, man.
You mean take everything?
They took everything he had.
Well, they took everything. He took everything away from Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown.
Not in court. He didn't. Listen, that's for God to figure out, man. Listen, here's what I'm telling you.
If the guy, you're going somewhere that I'm going to disagree with both of you guys here.
Listen, if I'm found innocent,
right, then you're innocent.
I'm innocent, dude.
Right.
I'm innocent.
But in civil case is different.
It is, but it shouldn't be. Is my point.
Yeah, I agree that what you're saying is the way the law should be. I think the difference that Rob is pointing out is it's a different legal standard. It's a lower threshold.
It is. I get that, but it shouldn't be. I'm just saying, if I'm found innocent...
And there's actually a legal principle that, frankly, I'm surprised doesn't cover this, which is called judicial estoppel, or res judicata, which is a fancy way of saying the thing has been decided already.
Yes.
That usually, in most legal matters, you cannot go back into court after you've lost a case, because it would waste judicial resources. And there was, obviously, at great length, a deliberation and a decision that the criminal court said he was not guilty. And I think it is somewhat disingenuous to have him stand trial for the same thing in a civil suit. I understand it's a different
There was a lot more evidence that was allowed in the civil suit, though, than there was in the criminal trial.
There is.
But at the same
So
time,
there's valid reasons on both sides.
I just think it's wrong.
But I think that you're right.
I think it's wrong.
I side with you, but Rob's right on the law.
But
I mean, no, I get what you're saying.
And I agree with the first verdict, too. I think it was BS, of course, because I believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that nobody else was responsible for those people getting killed but OJ.
Yeah.
But
no, there's no question.
Man, it's been 20 years. So.
But the interesting thing, and you posted about this, is karma does have a way of payback.
Well, he got
and what he's dealing with now in prison.
Yeah. He got it. So that's what I'm saying. For me, I mean, I look at that and I'm thinking, what if something like that happened to me? I mean, what if I really was innocent and something happened to me and I'm found innocent, then somebody decides to take everything from me?
Right.
I mean, that's just, and what he got caught for, he was trying to steal his stuff back, wasn't he?
You know, the interesting thing that I like...
They took his freaking Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
You know, here's the thing that...
Yeah, but you can't take the law into your own hands.
Right.
You can't go in there and hold them hostage.
But what I'm saying is, it's just... But it goes back to... This is the liberal in me. See,
I tell you, but here's the liberal in me.
It's a cause and effect, man.
Here's the liberal in me, and John alluded to a post that I put on Facebook.
You made him a bad guy by
a couple
taking
weeks
his
ago.
shit.
Yeah, but a couple weeks ago, I put a post on there about how sad it was to see that such a great athlete, you know, that we all remember growing up being the best running back ever.
And Samson commercials and the
Naked Gun movies.
It was great,
he was funny. I mean, he was all-American hero, and it's sad to see what he's been reduced to while he's incarcerated. That was my only thing. The guy's got he's got all kinds of health problems, and you see it and you hear about it and you go, he put himself in that position, but to see him an American icon reduced to that is pitiful.
It's sad. It's unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. I just think that the whole thing for me is it goes back to the only thing that Gary Johnson ever said during the election that made sense to me was if I ban assault rifles, I'd instantly make 30 million people, federal felons.
Right.
So again, and what that means to me is, how many times do our stupid laws and our stupid way of doing things make good people bad people inadvertently? And I think OJ is guilty of this crime that he was not found guilty of, but because we have a screwed up way of doing things, we forced him to become a criminal on the other side.
I don't think we forced him to do anything.
Well, I think we put him in a position.
He made that decision on his own to go in there and rob those people.
I get that.
I mean, he didn't rob them. He went to get his own stuff back, but he could have done it a different way. And he decided to be OJ, Mr. Untouchable, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to kick ass, and it just didn't work.
It just goes to the point that we've got issues.
Sure.
And that
what's interesting though that nobody really talks about much.
Take that side, would you?
Is I'm going to talk about the legal system for just a second, because what I love about the OJ case, and yeah, it's terrible that two people died, but what I loved is seeing someone that, for one of the rare times where somebody had the financial resources to go toe-to-toe against the government. And this is the thing that people never talk about, which is if you or I or Rob are convicted of a federal crime, there is almost no chance that you're going to be able, unless you've got some hidden bank account that I don't know about,
right, to mount that kind of defense.
Because they have the entire resources of the federal government, or the state has the entire resources of the state.
Yeah.
And for people to go to trial against that kind of juggernaut is just unbelievable. And there are innocent people that get convicted.
Chris Rock said it best. He said, this wasn't about black, this wasn't about white in the OJ trial, this was about money. He said, if O.J. Simpson wasn't O.J. Simpson, if he wasn't a star running back and he was a bus driver, he wouldn't have been O.J. Simpson, star running back, not guilty. He'd have been Orenthal, the bus driving murderer.
Right.
He would have been in prison.
Well, it wouldn't have been on TV either. It wouldn't have drawn the attention.
No one would have known about it. He'd have just been another guy with a number stenciled on his prison fatigues.
It's happening every day.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. That brings up a good point. It is good because they did throw everything they had at him, and he did beat it. And I think he, again.
And those lawyers all, I mean, a lot of people knew who they were in the Hollywood circle, but as soon as they took that case, and as soon as that went, the show trial that was,
the Kardashians are still living.
Oh yeah, they're still milking it, and everybody remembers who Johnny Cochran is and who Shapiro was, and everybody knows now who what was the DNA guy? What's
Yeah.
his name?
No, apparently nobody knows.
I don't remember.
No.
Barry Scheck. Barry
Yes.
Scheck. Barry Scheck.
How about Cato or Cujo, whatever his name was,
Oh.
living in the
Cato
house?
Kalin.
Cato living in the house.
Ah,
Right.
Cujo.
Cujo, I don't know what his flipping name was.
That's funny.
Listen, I just think, I guess going back to this, all the issues, I just felt like it was, I look at the Middle East, and you brought up something that it's on his agenda. You look at the Arab Spring. You dig into the Arab Spring. It was a celebrated mess that we created. We helped create. Okay.
See, I know I sound crazy when I say this. I actually am perfectly okay with the Arab Spring and all that mess, because think about it.
They just traded one form of slavery for another.
No.
In Egypt they did.
But they're busy now. They're busy fighting amongst themselves, as opposed to being this united front aimed at the rest of the world. I mean,
except for what's going on in Syria.
Except for Syria, you're right. So, but is it there's something to be said for toppling dictators, even if you leave a mess behind. It isn't clean. It isn't pretty. No. Nobody likes it.
I don't get the Libya,
and to
though.
some extent, though, I blame the people, and I know it's difficult. In every great country, and I use that word purposefully, great, they seize the opportunity that's presented to them, like we did 230 some odd years ago, and grabbed their independence, and they created a democracy, and they created a government by the people. Those people had a window of opportunity, and you can argue whether it's passed them by or not. But to some extent, and Obama actually was the one that pointed this out first when he did that interview, I believe, with Al Jazeera right after being inaugurated. He took, and go back and check this out, he took the Muslim countries to task and said, look, you have this great history. You developed algebra and all these wonderful things. But you, of all the other countries around the world, you have just basically been mired in your own muck, and you haven't advanced. And I think to some extent, just as I'm really hard on Israelis and how they, what they're doing in the occupied territories is atrocious, I'm equally hard on Muslims and their own inability to stand up and say, no, we're not radical Islamists. Our faith is not the equivalent of the Westboro Baptist Church. We are different. We stand for peace. And you know what? That day has not yet come. And I don't know when we're going to see that day. But the fact that, they're in a mess, and we sort of helped create it, but, I don't feel the same sympathy towards them like I do to the people in Syria or people in Africa that are being butchered.
Well, I think Africa has been a mess for a long time, and I don't know why.
It just migrates there. It went from, it just moves around.
Yeah, I don't know.
Africa's such a large continent anyway, but every single little tribal area that's controlled by this petty dictator or another, and then once they're gone, the vacuum comes in, and then you have Darfur, you have Ethiopia, you have Somalia, you have all of Mogadishu.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, those, Somalia, Mogadishu, same thing. You have all of that. The only place you haven't seen that is South Africa, and what would we have there? Apartheid. That's over, but the only reason that it didn't spiral into turning into Darfur was because there was at least some semblance of leadership there, whether it was on one side or the other, that never got toppled.
And they actually did one thing that I think is radical. It's almost never done. If you look at the reconciliation project that they did, it actually had people who did terrible acts come forward and say what they did, and you had people that were subjected to unspeakable cruelty. And there's something to be said for having an adult conversation of people. And as human beings, we do awful stuff to each other, and everybody does. There's no one that hasn't done awful things to somebody. And if you're saying that you've never done it, then you just really haven't done much self-examination.
We brought Rob on this show.
Well, so and we're gonna have to pay the price for that. So my dream of being on a syndicated radio program probably went up in smoke. But I'm not gonna abandon my friend here. I'm gonna stand up and say, you know what? He's still my friend. You know,
he's good. So listen, we're way past our time, so the producer's over here looking at us. But I don't think we answered any questions.
Do we want to talk about?
Yeah, so we do. So we will. I'll intro it to you if you're comfortable.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so, and this is before Rob's brother for me, because we have a really bad problem locally, and I know it's nationally, but I don't care as much nationally as I do locally. I've got relatives dealing with heroin. I think everybody knows somebody dealing with heroin. Sadly, Rob lost his little brother to heroin.
2 months ago.
Yeah, and what's weird is I didn't even know Ryan Haven had an issue. I didn't even know.
Well, it's not something you go putting on billboards.
No, but it's something you could think that
and I've made up a lot.
I get it. We don't need it.
I've had a lot of excuses and made excuses for him, and now everybody tries to dance around it. And this weekend, my wife said, "Are you going to be okay this weekend?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She's, "Well, it's Christmas, and and I'm like, "Listen, that's out there. That's already there. Everybody knows. I'm not going to try to sidestep that in any way." So my view on his death is, I'm not ashamed of him. I want his death and his situation to serve as a warning to other people who might have, and I've, for years and years, used to just, he's just weak, that's what it is. And weakness is in the beginning of it. That's the beginning stage of addiction. That's where the weakness is. But once it's locked onto you, it's got you. And those people don't want to do what they're doing. Maybe they want to stop, but it's almost impossible, especially when you're hooked on the opioids and all of that.
Can you explain a little bit more about that part? Because I don't think people, because not everybody's going to know the context in which we're talking about here.
Okay, the context has always been this, and it's been this argument, and I've had this argument with a bunch of people who know addicts and that are addicts, and even with my own brother and even with my mom, I've had this argument, and it always comes down to, well, it's a disease. And clinically, it fits the definition of a disease once it's progressed to that point. But in the beginning, nobody just wakes up one day out of nowhere and says, you know what, I've got to use that. I've got to use heroin. I have to do that. I have this, they've made a conscious decision at some point to use, and it always starts somewhere easy. And thank God that not all of us have that predisposition to end up that way. Some of us can drink and function and we're fine, and I know guys that can smoke weed and they're productive people and it doesn't affect their lives and they're fine, but there are some people that first drink just sets them on a path of being addicts.
I think doctors own a lot of this. Doctors got my nephew with painkillers.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
And I know him too.
Yeah, and I don't want to say his name.
No, we won't say names, but I know who you're talking about.
I pray for him. He's battling, dude. He's battling, and we talk, and he's smart.
I think he's doing okay right now.
He's hanging in there, man. But as you know, it's.
Yeah, but it never. My brother was that way. Yeah, my brother was that way. He seemed like he was doing okay for about 9-10 months. He seemed like everything was on the up for him. He was working, full time, over full time, and then one day I get the call, and it was that phone call that I was prepared for the last 10 years, but you're still not expecting it. 9 times out of 10 when his girlfriend's number would pop up on my phone, I would go, that's him calling me from her phone. But that day, it was the call that I was dreading for 10 years.
I think where I get upset about it, because and maybe I'm pretty sure everybody knows somebody. And that's the thing. I think everybody knows somebody, and yet nobody talks about it.
Right.
Nobody wants to do anything.
And I think a big problem with it is how we, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, in incarceration and education, and not taking care of our own and just locking them up or pushing them off as a statistic and saying
it's not a disease in my mind. It's an epidemic.
I don't believe
problem.
it's a problem, but I don't believe it's a disease. As in I don't think it's not like you got MS or something like that. No, it's something that progressed from a decision you made. But at the same time, once they get to the point where they're addicts, they don't like doing what they're doing.
It's just like
I can
smoking.
tell you that.
I mean, I don't want to compare my smoking to heroin addiction by any stretch.
But statistically and physiologically, they've likened it to opiate addiction and saying it's as hard to quit smoking as it is to stop.
But until I made that
popping
decision
pills
to quit smoking, until I said there was no help for me. Now it's been 2000. So I'm 14 years. 2001.
Yeah.
14 years. No, I don't know. A long time not smoking. And I can tell you right now, I'll be walking behind somebody and I get a whiff off a cigarette, and it comes
right back to you.
Oh man, this is amazing.
Yeah.
What I'm
my
saying
grandmother, just a quick aside, she started smoking when she was like 15.
I was 13.
And she smoked her entire life until she literally was on oxygen and it would blow her up. And even then, they had caught her a couple times.
Oh my God!
And she would like do.
That's
the same.
awesome.
She would still do the same thing that you're talking about. She'd be in a restaurant or somewhere and she'd get a whiff of cigarette smoke and she would just go.
And here's what people don't understand. So I was sitting somewhere. This is about a month ago. We'll get off this real quick. So I sat down. I come in. I sit down, there's a pack of cigarettes and a lighter, right? Sitting there. I start talking. We're talking. Grab lighter.
Start packing a smoke.
I get everybody one out. I'm like, what the hell? My dad hasn't smoked for almost 30 years, and he'll reach into his pocket. Yeah. It's the thing that people don't understand is these habits never go away. And like I try to tell my nephew, this is the battle for the rest of your life. It's not you're going to be okay in a month.
Well, and I can tell you this. My brother had been off it for a year. Close to a year, I guess, because addicts as they do lie about it all the time.
But he told me won't kill you.
He told
heroin can.
Yeah, he told me. And that's another thing. But when the tax report came back, it wasn't heroin.
Probably some other
fentanyl killed him.
Which what they're
but they're thinking that they think it's heroin when they're buying it, but it's not. No. But he told me, and this is the scariest part for me is. Even when you've been off it for a long time, he said, "There's not a day goes by where I don't want to use think about using."
It's an addiction, like an alcoholic, like a cigarette smoker, like a porn addicted person. It's the same thing. And the problem with heroin is you buy the wrong thing because it's an illegal drug and it takes your life.
And you don't know how to dose it properly. And that's why I've said for a long time, and this might sound radical, and some people say, I can't believe you believe that because your brother died from it, is make it legal. Make it legal and make it to where, don't let new people go in and get it. I don't know how you prove that or not, but don't let anybody just walk in off the street and buy it. Have it regulated, but have it dosed to where you can go and get that fixed if you need it or whatever, and it's not going to be as dangerous.
I think there's some stuff
I don't know how you do that because I'm not a doctor. But
there's some stuff out there like that where people go around.
Well, there's methadone and all of that, but that doesn't work either.
What I'm saying is there's like safe houses where people go and I watch that drug.
If there's interestingly enough, let me start over. Interestingly enough, I just read yesterday that Missouri legalized Narcan.
Yeah. Narcan's a huge thing.
For over-the-counter purchase.
Which it should be.
You don't have to have a prescription to go in and buy it. So if you're a family member...
You can have it.
Yeah, if you're a family member who has an addicted person living with you or close to you...
Go buy some.
Go buy Narcan and have it handy. It wouldn't have helped my brother because they didn't find him for 6 hours. But if you find someone that's in the middle of OD...
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. And I there is places that people go, they give them clean needles, they let them...
You can get clean needles over in Missouri.
So I mean, they are doing some things to try to prevent it because.
Well, that's the needle thing is more for stopping the spread of AIDS and hepatitis and stuff like that.
But they're still supplying it. It's a step, is what I'm trying to get to.
It's not like it was back in the 90s and 80s where you were in trouble if you even had possession of it.
And I don't think heroin, Rob, just so you know, I don't think it's looked at anymore as a. I think. 40 years ago, heroin was like taboo. It's not. I think that
it's getting more common. Yeah, and it's scary how much of it's out there. I've talked to everywhere. Alton police officers,
and it's
terrifying.
It's not just poor people.
No, it transcends race.
It's probably more into the
race and socioeconomic status.
It's a huge problem in West County.
Yeah, they're finding them in West County. They're finding them in Clayton. They're finding kids around here in this area in well-to-do neighborhoods. It's not a poor ghetto trailer park thing. It's everywhere.
And it's stronger, a lot stronger.
Way stronger than it used to be. Back in the day, back in the 70s when people OD'd on heroin, it was because their bodies were broke down and they just took too much. Now it's you do it and you die like now. And it's so strong and so potent that it's just ridiculous.
And just so other people can know too, just as somebody who's lost their little brother as well, Christmas is tough.
Yes.
But it's that day out of the blue when you're driving home.
Mhm.
It hits you like a brick that you don't expect. So, we'll end it there, man. So, I think it was a good show for the last show of the year. I feel like it was good.
Yeah.
We didn't solve
It's been a rough year for a lot of us and for a lot of the country. So
the country's in trouble.
Be
I
nice
don't know
to
if the
get
answer's out there.
Be nice to get 2016 behind us.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, everybody.
You didn't steal that one, did you, y'all? Happy New Year. Be safe. We'll
Happy
see you.
New Year.
Bye-bye.
One of the greatest myths about car dealers is that some pay less for their cars than others. Hi, I'm John Roberts, and we all pay the same. Here at Roberts Motors, we can compete with any Ford dealer, regardless of how big they are or how great they say their deals are. The number one concern of anyone buying a car today is service. At Roberts Motors, we pride ourselves in exceptional service before, after, and during the sale. Stop in today and see why Roberts has been the home of happy customers since 1949, or see us online at RiverBender.com.
Trust Family Auto Sales and Cycles focuses on providing you with the highest quality used vehicles in the Riverbend. Before hitting the lot, all cars are thoroughly inspected and serviced in our very own repair shop. We make sure your future vehicle will look like it just came